Welcome to Reflect with Ed Fassio. Get ready to experience one of the world's first 100% digitally generated podcasts, where we take a step back, dive deep, and strive to learn new things. Join us as we unpack thought-provoking ideas, personal reflections, and inspiring stories to help you stay in the know. Reflect is brought to you by the minds at ByteBrain and powered by emerging technologies from Google, HeyGen, OpenAI, and 11 Labs. Thanks for tuning in. Now, relax and prepare to reflect.
Welcome to Reflect, one of the world's first 100% AI-generated podcasts. I'm Hale.
And I'm Julius. Hale, I want to ask you something. If the government signed you up for something with real consequences, without ever telling you, without ever asking, would you even know?
That's not a hypothetical. That's what just happened, and most people have no idea.
Starting December 2026, every eligible man in the United States between 18 and 25 will be automatically registered with the Selective Service system, the military draft pool. No letter, no form, no opt-in. The government will just find you through your passport, your driver's license, your immigration records, and add your name to the list.
It was buried in a 3,000-page defense bill. No hearings, no public debate, no budget review. President Trump signed it in December 2025, and today, the rule is moving through federal regulators, set to go live by the end of this year.
Today we're getting into what this actually means. Not the policy summary, the real story. About consent, about privacy, about who gets caught in the dragnet, and about a question that hasn't been asked seriously in over 50 years. What does your government owe you before it can send you to war?
Here's the background. Since 1980, when President Carter reinstated the draft registration after the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, American men have been legally required to register with the Selective Service within 30 days of turning 18. Fail to register, and you could face a fine up to $250,000, 5 years in prison, or lose access to federal student loans and federal jobs.
That system was already fraying. In 2022, the option to register was removed from federal student loan forms, which had been responsible for nearly a quarter of all registrations. By 2023, only 39.9% of men complied when they hit 18. The system was quietly falling apart.
So the Selective Service system went to Congress and said, "We have a compliance problem." The solution they proposed? Stop asking. Just find them. Use the databases we already have. Federal records, state DMVs, passport data, visa files, and build the list ourselves.
Congress said yes, without a hearing, without a floor debate. They folded it into the 2026 National Defense Authorization Act, the annual must-pass defense spending bill, and it became law.
No senator stood up and said, "We are changing how America identifies people from military service." It just happened.
Now here's where it gets complicated, because automatic registration isn't just about convenience, it's about data and who gets caught.
Whether you're required to register for the draft depends on specific factors: your sex as assigned at birth, your immigration status, your visa classification. But those details may not exist or may be wrong in the databases the Selective Service is now authorized to pull from.
In January 2026, EPIC, the Electronic Privacy Information Center, along with a coalition of civil liberties groups, filed formal comments against the rule. Their concern: the SSS is now authorized to pull from any federal database. That's an unprecedented level of data aggregation, and it creates real risk of misidentification, particularly for transgender youth, non-binary individuals, and immigrants whose records may be incomplete, conflicting, or simply wrong.
And there's already evidence of how this data gets used beyond its stated purpose. Earlier this year, the Department of State and U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services requested access to the SSS database, officially to evaluate citizenship eligibility. But that same access could be used to flag immigrants for deportation. The data pipeline goes both ways.
Over 50 organizations signed a joint statement in March. Peace groups, religious institutions, civil liberties lawyers, calling for a full repeal of the Selective Service Act. They're not fringe voices. They include Veterans for Peace, the American Friends Service Committee, the National Lawyers Guild. Their message? This isn't just a policy tweak. This is infrastructure for war.
Julius, the last time the U.S. actually activated a draft was 1973, Vietnam. 2.2 million men were drafted. 58,000 Americans died. The resistance movement that rose up against that draft nearly broke the Selective Service system entirely. Most people listening to us right now weren't alive for any of that.
And here's what I keep coming back to. Gen Z, the generation that would actually be called, has grown up in a world where the military is a choice, an all-volunteer force. You enlist because you want to. The idea that the government can reach into a database and put your name on a list without your knowledge and potentially use that list to conscript you into a war you never voted for, never agreed to, never even knew was coming, that's a different reality entirely.
And then there's the equity layer. Women are still exempt, even after a House Armed Services Committee vote, 35 to 24, to include women in registration. That provision was stripped. So we have a system that's being automated, expanded, and turbocharged that still only applies to men. That tension isn't going away.
Why now? That's the question I can't shake. The US is currently executing Operation Epic Fury, active airstrikes against Iranian targets. We've reportedly launched over 850 Tomahawk missiles in a month. The Hormuz deadline, the China pressure, the Ukraine situation, the geopolitical temperature is as high as it's been since the Cold War. Registering more bodies for a potential draft, right now, in this moment, is not a coincidence.
To be clear, there is no draft. The Selective Service hasn't activated one since 1973, and Congress would have to authorize it. But the infrastructure is being quietly expanded and modernized, and that matters because having the machinery in place makes it easier for decision makers to consider using it.
All right, here's what you can actually do with this. First, know where you stand. Go to sss.gov. If you're a man between 18 and 25, or you have a son, a brother, a student in that range, check the registration status. Starting in December, the government will be checking for you. You should know before they do.
Second, understand your rights before they get complicated. Conscientious objector status, the legal protection for those with sincere moral or religious objections to combat, still exists. But historically, the best time to establish that record is before a draft is activated. Automatic registration may make it harder to indicate your objection early. Resources are available at the Center on Conscience and War. That's a real organization. Look them up.
And third, and this is the one that matters most, ask the question. Not to us, to your representatives, your communities, the people around you. What is the social contract between a government and the people it can send to fight? What does consent look like in that equation? The fact that this change was made without hearings, without debate, without a single public conversation, that's the story underneath the story. And the only way that changes is if enough people decide it matters.
They signed you up without asking. The least we can do is start asking questions.
Thanks for listening to the Reflect podcast, where we're telling the future. Are you in it? Visit reflectpodcast.com and share your story.
And if you're between 18 and 25, you might already be on a list. Stay informed, stay loud.
In the cyber ocean of online voices and recycled content, something different has arrived. Reflect isn't just another podcast, It's the future of storytelling, powered entirely by AI. From curating data to assembling thought-provoking ideas, we've redefined how journeys are told. Reflect is a podcast that thinks, learns, and evolves with each episode. Every tale, every insight, crafted by the most advanced AI technologies. A podcast that disrupts the industry, breaking free from traditional formats, taking you on an entirely new experience. So tune in now and reflect. We're telling the future.